What do you think is the most common word that high schoolers tell me is used to insult, bully, or disrespect girls? Take a guess. Slut. You got it. How many women will be called this word? Well, all of them. Now, my students used to say, "Nuh-uh, professor, what about a nun?" But then I met a nun, I asked the nun, and she said, "Of course I've been called a slut." and I thought to myself, damn. If the nun is getting called a slut, that means every one of our mothers, daughters, sisters, friends, co-workers, every one of them will be called that word. Why should we care? Finish this sentence for me. That slut got what she deserved. Exactly. Think about what we just said. Think about what we just told a rapist, a bully, an abuser. We told them that some women deserve it. We told them to go for it. And what did we just tell a victim? We said it's your fault. You deserved it. We told them to keep silent. You see, our language matters. Our actions matter. Inaction is when we hear the word slut being used and we say nothing. Action is when we say, no, that's not right. Inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." My colleague Janelle Williams and I have grown fond of saying that inaction anywhere is an endorsement to injustice everywhere. Our inaction matters. Our inaction normalizes bullying, disrespect, and abuse. Now, our inaction comes in many different forms, of course. Consider, for example, how many times you've heard someone repeat the stereotype that guys think about sex all the time. Now, I go to high schools, and they tell me that guys think about sex every 3 seconds. Every 3 seconds. This is absurd, right? I mean, like, how would you function as a human being in society if this were true, right? You're like, well, like, hi, my name is, whoa, right? Like, I mean, it is ridiculous. And we playfully suggest, you know how guys are, referring to men's insatiable sexual desires. And we do this without realizing that we are basically saying that male victims of rape weren't raped because they must have wanted it. And if they didn't, well, they probably should have stopped it. Make no mistake, our inaction to address this stereotype sends a powerful message to a potential rapist because it says that guys can't control themselves. It says guys think about sex and want sex and need sex, so guys will do whatever it takes to get sex, right? No, this makes it sound like all men are potential walking rape time bombs, which if you are a man or know a man, I think this idea should infuriate you. This idea makes it sound like rape and sex trafficking are normal and acceptable. Our actions do matter. Whether we hear someone using the word slut, calling someone ghetto, labeling someone retarded, or saying that's so gay, our action or inaction is the difference between inclusion and discrimination, between safety and violence. Because when we dehumanize and disrespect other people, hurting them gets easier. For years, I've been doing an activity all across the United States, in middle schools and military bases, in hospitals and higher education. I've done it from the mountains to the valleys, literally from sea to shining sea. I ask people to describe a world where we prioritize respect, and then to describe a world where we don't prioritize respect. This is what they tell me. And what you see in front of you is kind of obvious, isn't it? Right? And so too is the answer to the question I ask them. Which of these worlds do they prefer? And they all pick the disrespect one. No, of course they don't. No, they don't. Everyone picks the respect one. And why? Who doesn't want that world? But a world where we prioritize respect is not our default condition. We have to choose it. And we have to choose respect, not just for other people, but for ourselves. How many of you know a boy or a man who knows the stereotype that says real men are strong and solve problems on their own? And they know it's a stupid stereotype, but they still feel like a failure when they have to ask for help. How many of you know a girl or woman who knows the stereotype that says that women's bodies need to be thin, curvy, young, and flawless to be attractive? And they know it's a stupid stereotype, but they still feel self-conscious about their own body? How many of you know someone who isn't a boy or a girl and learns to not feel comfortable with who they are? How many of you know a young black child who learns to see themselves like this?
And can you show me the doll that looks bad? Okay. And why does that look bad?
Because it's black.
And why do you think that's a nice doll?
Because she's white.
And can you give me the doll that looks like you? "15 out of the 21 children preferred the white doll."
Our inaction in the face of stereotypes and disrespect hurts us all deeply. But we can make a choice to redefine even the most unhealthy of ideas. For example, no means no is probably the most common story in our culture about consent. I mean, I heard it constantly growing up, and it got compared to another story. It got connected to it, and it got connected to this other story that said real men don't ask, they just go for it. Now, these two interconnected stories were repeated hundreds of times in movies and TV shows and songs. If you want to kiss someone, just go for it. Heck, I got told the story of Sleeping Beauty as if that was normal or acceptable. Mind you, this woman is unconscious when this guy comes up and starts making out with her. No means no is absurd. First, we say, that if you want to do things, and it's courageous to just do what you want to do. But asking is actually also courageous, because when you ask, you risk rejection. Not to mention, asking is the simplest and most effective way to find out what the other person wants. Yeah? Second, not everyone's going to say no. Sometimes because they're afraid, maybe because they're intimidated, maybe they've frozen up, or perhaps they're unconscious or incapacitated, like Sleeping Beauty. Third, no means no implies that consent exists by default. Think about it. If no means no is the policy, then I can walk into the audience right now and just start grabbing your genitals. And I'm guessing most of you would not be okay with this. I mean, some of you might, but most of you, most of you would not be okay with this. But based on the logic of no means no, you just have to endure what I'm doing because consent is there until you take it away? No, this is ridiculous. We need to tell a new story like the one my friend and mentor Carol Mosley taught me. Yes means yes, and everything else means no. Yes means yes, yeah? Yes means yes, and everything else means no. This way we teach everybody that touching someone else's body is not something they have a right to. Rather, you have permission to touch someone else when, and only when, they give you permission. That's consent. And yes means yes doesn't have to be those exact words every time. Yes means yes is about us mutually exploring our sexual desires. It's about someone else's needs being important to us. It's about sex being collaborative, not competitive. And let's be honest, isn't sex always better when we're collaborating at it? Right? Thank you. Yes means yes. Yes means yes is a simple reminder that consent is sexy. I mean, it's also mandatory because without consent, it's rape. But consent is actually damn sexy. I mean, when someone you want to have sex with comes up to you and says, hey, I'd like to put my in your and then we'll I mean, basically everyone on the planet is like, let's do it, right? Look, practicing and promoting yes means yes and consent is a simple choice because rape is less likely to happen in a world where we prioritize safe, healthy, respectful sexual experiences. Action here is a no-brainer. But yes means yes only works if we ask, then listen, and respect the other person's response. In fact, listening to and valuing other people's experiences, well, that's essential if we're going to build a healthier and safer world. Based on work by Professor of Philosophy Talia Becher, our team now refers to this concept as basic acknowledgement of experience. It stands in stark contrast to basic denial of experience, which is when we value our own version of someone's experiences over theirs. Basic denial of experience is when a victim of workplace discrimination says they're being mistreated, and we say, you're probably overreacting. Basic denial of experience is when a victim of sexual assault tells us what happened, and we judge them by asking about choices that they made. Basic denial of experience is when a community of people living in fear for their lives say, Black lives matter, and we look back at them and say, well, wait, white lives matter too. Basic denial of experience is when someone says no to our kiss, and we kiss them anyway because we think we know what they want. Basic denial of experience is when we focus solely on our intentions and not on the impact of our actions. Basic acknowledgement of experience? Well, basic acknowledgement of experience is when we say, I recognize what I said hurt you, and I'm sorry. Or, I'm not sure if I understand your experience entirely, but I hear you and I want to help. Or, it's okay, of course we can stop. Or, thanks for telling me. That must have been really hard. Basic acknowledgement of experience is a simple choice to allow other people to be the experts on their lives. Have you ever heard someone say, you know what I hate? People who value my experiences. No. You have never heard anyone say that. And why? Because we all want that. Basic acknowledgement of experience is us building space for empathy and connection instead of silencing people's voices, which is exactly how violence, discrimination, bullying, and abuse flourish. Yes means yes only works, though, if we value other people's safety and their sense of well-being, which is exactly why we have to act in the face of bigotry, because it destroys our safety and thus our chance to connect. Look, I'm not here to tell you that I always take action. I don't. And I'm definitely not here to tell you that I have always chosen respect. I haven't. I'm here because after a decade plus of trying to prevent violence and build a more inclusive world, I've come to realize that we want this world, if we really want this world, there are no sidelines. There's a fancy public health term called collective impact. It basically says that to create social change, everyone has to participate. Everyone has to act in some little way. So let's say this building is a metaphor for a world where violence, bullying, abuse, and disrespect happen. So it becomes the metaphoric space for everyone who's been called a slut, for everyone who's been told their manhood is about getting laid, for everyone who said no and wasn't listened to, and for every victim who's been blamed. So we want to tear this building down, right? Except here's the catch. There is no magic bulldozer. There is no magic dynamite to blow up this building of disrespect. No, there never has been, and there never will be. But every one of us has the tools we already need. A tiny little hammer and a tiny little chisel. Now you might be thinking, how are we going to tear down a building with tiny hammers and tiny chisels? Right? Because we're going to remember that as we start chipping away, other people are going to see us. And they're going to begin to realize that action, not inaction, that action is the norm. And then they're going to be chipping away with us. And before you know it, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of us chipping away, one little action at a time. No superheroes needed, just one little action every day. And then, then we will bring this sucker down. So today I am here to ask you to pick up that tiny hammer, to pick up that tiny chisel, and act. Thank you.